Hello and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, and I'm here to speak with everyday superheroes helping nonprofits. Joining me today is Laurent Proulx of Procure, a prostate cancer awareness organization. Laurent, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, in full disclosure to my listeners, Laurent and I have been working together for almost 2 years, something like that. I've been helping them with their Salesforce instance, integrations to Shopify, and a custom donation platform. It's been always a pleasure, and this is my honor to be able to talk to Laurent today about his organization in further detail and be able to share it with all of you. So I appreciate you again, Laurent, your time today.
Thank you.
So let's start with the beginning. Your superhero origin story, or as you might want to say it, is how did you decide to start Procure? What was the motivation behind it? All that kind of backstory.
Actually, I didn't start Procure. Procure was founded in 2003. And I had prostate cancer around 2009. So it was actually, it was founded by Montreal businessmen that were somewhat, didn't find any French information on prostate cancer. And actually the name, if you look at the name, it's Procure, it's prostate cure. It was an English-speaking businessman in Montreal that decided to found a website to provide information for patients. So I got involved in 2010. After 1 year after my diagnostic, I got involved in the board. I did an event, a cycling event for Procure, and they were asking me, how much money you're planning to raise. I said, well, 150,000. So and they were kind of surprised in a way, saying, well, who's that guy, coming from nowhere, having prostate cancer. So actually, I did raise 150,000, and I said to Procure, I need at least to provide 30,000 to another organization that is built for research, and that's what they did. So after the event, they asked me to join the board. So I was a board member from 2010 to 2013 for 4 years, and then they've asked me, what about you coming on board as a CEO of Procure? You got to just roll back. Just before I got involved, or before I got cancer, I founded an IT company that went public in 2000, and I was involved in that. And I didn't have the same package as Steve Jobs. I was kicked out of the company that I founded. So, and then I, start wandering around, and I decided, well, what I want to do after that. And then I had cancer, so I had something to do. I had to take care of my own health, and decided to get involved with Procure because I felt that my urologist was a board member, and he said, well, the way you could get involved, since I was in IT and research in IT, he says, well, there's a huge project that we're building. We're building a biobank. So the idea is that 2,000 men from Quebec have given their prostate and are going to follow for the next 10 years. You want to get involved in that? And I felt that meant something to me. Instead of only making a donation, that's much more a greater involvement. And since I have 2 sons, the way to ensure that they won't get prostate cancer is to invest in research or something like that, just prevent and everything. So that's the way I got involved with Procure at the beginning, and then after that, fundraising was part of my story, and for the next years before I was on the board, before I became CEO, I was involved. We went up to $300,000 for the cycling event that we fundraised, and for me, I was kind of okay. So if I get to be the CEO, I'll probably have people that are kind of come up to me and fundraise $300,000 per year for me for Procure, and sorry, but that did not happen. So it was kind of a family involvement to fundraise, and the fact that because of my network and everything, I was able to do that. And I decided that I wanted to make a difference. Really want to make a difference in the way that we fundraise, but also the way we provide services. So that's something that was important to me at the beginning. So that's the short story how I got involved.
I actually didn't know you had prostate cancer, so thank you for being honest about that, for sharing that. That's
pretty young. Also, I had prostate cancer at 48, so that was the reason I got involved with Procure, because I didn't even know about Procure before that.
Okay, so starting with the cycling, that's going well. Research and then fundraising. So I know that the biggest event that I'm at least part of that I enjoy going to is your bow tie event, which happens in November. Would you say that's your largest event? Do you have other kinds of events? Like, how do you generally approach your fundraising?
You know, we're a small organization, so we try to have, not a lot of fundraising activity. So we have two in the spring, Father's Day. So we have two main activity. My original cycling event, the Tour du Courage, was at Father's Day. So, and that's been going on. So I thought that was going to be an event for 3 or 4 years. It's been almost like 15 years now that we're doing that cycling event. It still fundraise around 300,000 about. So really interesting that, something that I've done so many years with my family still exists, and it brings people around the prostate cancer. And the other event is really Bovember, the bow tie and everything. So, and that activity will raise around over $1 million. Obviously, there's a lot revolving around that event. We have the bow tie affair. We have some partners that are fundraising. People are doing events in that month of November. So there's a butterfly effect during that month. Wearing a bow tie, the nœud papillon, or wearing the bow tie has a butterfly effect. People want to get involved, and now the month of November is really the largest fundraising month for Procure. So we have an account. How do you say the account in English? I don't know.
Yeah, lottery.
Lottery. Well, it's not a lottery. It's like where you're bidding on an item that it's for. Let's say a night at the hotel. So I'm bidding $100. Somebody's overbidding me and everything. So we have that. We have the lottery, and this is really working out really well, really, really well. And so we're trying to, use social media. We're trying to use a lot more than just our fundraising network. We're using the social media has a lot of impact on ourselves right now. If you're looking at the lottery that we're doing, most of the activity is done through social media. Our boutique Shopify boutique that we're selling stuff is really, really active every day. It's not during the month of November is really amazing. So for us, it was kind of, I didn't want at the beginning to do a lot more events that we were doing. And I wanted to find ways to do one-to-many effect. So the bow tie was kind of putting our fundraising network from corporate to more people. So expand on the people that are being touched with that event. So the idea behind that is awareness. Prior to me becoming the CEO, Procure was really more targeted to corporate or big foundation. So typically what you do is you knock on the door and you ask the president if he's willing to invest $100,000 for Procure. So he says yes, and then he sends you to the CFO, and the CFO prepares a check, and you got the check. At the end of the day, you got $100,000, but you only talked to two person. So that was a big issue for us. It was a big issue for me. I said, well, prostate cancer is not known. People don't know about that. We got to switch from those, which is interesting, but from a much broader base of donors. And Movember was really a way to expand on that. We've used well-known people to ambassadors to doing a photo shoot, really classy photo shoot. So that had an enormous impact. It was politician, musician, athletes. So we expanded the network. We have over 30 ambassadors and this has really had a great impact. At the beginning, we're asking them to be part of that campaign. Now they're asking us to be part of the campaign. I want are you willing to take me as a photo and put it? And that's really something that I think we've built value. We had a big, quote unquote, competitor during that month, and that was pulling the money and not leaving enough money for us. So we've decided to work along with this competitor and be present during the month of November without being, just expressing what we do best,
Yeah, the Movember is awesome. I've been to one of them last year. I'm hoping to go again this year. It's great to see that it's expanded so much to where the ambassadors are now chasing you. That's amazing. So, and you also mentioned athletes and other social media. So how have you discovered and how have you really taking advantage of that social media, those ambassadors, athletes, the politicians, to raise awareness? Like, is it a really you start small and it's just a snowball effect over time, or is there certain conscious decisions along the way that said, this works, this approach works, but this one doesn't work so much, so we'll pivot or spend more time with the former and less with the latter? Like, how do you start knowing where to spend your efforts?
Well, the ambassador was quite, we had 6 at the beginning, and it was quite a nice way to expand our network. We sell, I was lucky enough. One of our spokesperson was on a TV newscast, Jean Paget, and he was well known in the media. So Jean and I, we leverages is the fact that he was well known, and to reach out to ambassador that we knew could spread the word into their network. So we had at the beginning some sport athletes that were reaching out. So if you're looking where men are, they're watching sports. So we tried to capture that network. And then we ended up having the whole network, the RDS, the TVA Sport, getting involved, wearing the bow tie during the hockey match, So that was kind of a ripple effect, saying, wow, this is great if we could do that with the politicians, and we did that with the politicians. Who gets on TV every night? Politicians get on TV every night. So if you're able to convert some of those wearing the bow tie, then you'll be on the spot. What is that thing? They're wearing a bow tie for what? Because a bow tie, it's not a piece of clothes that you're wearing every day. So it started out the discussion. And the fact that we were able to expand, then we realized that these ambassadors were using a lot of Instagram and Facebook, and said, well, what about if they were building stories, and we're expanding normally our network. And then we've decided to invest in meta ads and start expanding. And some people will say, well, how much money are you going to spend on meta ads? Well, you can spend $25,000 on in a month for sure in meta ads. I don't care about spending money. If the return on investment is tenfold, who cares? The idea is to expand and to fundraise. It costs money to fundraise, so you got to spend money wisely. So we know about the metrics in meta ads, and we're following the metrics. And if it falls down below 2 or 3, we won't spend as much. But when it's in the realm of $6 and $7 of return on $1 investment, that's a good deal. It's a good deal.
Just because we're using local terms, so the news stations you were referring to is like the equivalent of ESPN.
Exactly. Yeah.
So because this is very local, we're here talking in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Right. So I know some of our listeners are in the U.S. as well, so we'll just try to keep them in mind as well.
Sure. So the idea was to use that, and now today it's like I say, people are contacting me before. And some will, I was there before, why are you not taking me anymore? So, sometimes, the impact is not as great as we thought. So, but the idea is that you gotta have ambassadors that are engaged. And I think that the brand that we're pushing is really classy. So you're not getting involved in something really up to a certain level. The information we're providing is at a certain level also. So we try to keep that high standard all across the board. So when you're fundraising, that the brand has an impact. You get involved because you like what the brand is telling you. But at the end of the day, like I say many times, I'm not selling bow ties. I'm selling awareness. I'm selling prostate cancer awareness. That's what I'm selling. Bow tie is only a way to get there, and fundraising is only a way to get there. So for me, it was always about, I find that our organization is really much more like a startup. It's a 20-year-old startup, so we're trying to be innovative. We're trying to take risk, and we're not afraid of spending some money to get more money, for the patient. And that for me is like, it's more like an entrepreneur type of fundraising organization or patient organization. It's really trying to invent. Like next year, we're looking at more going back to the patient, understanding the problem, the problems of a patient, and refining our services around that. Putting a lot more the patient into having a patient-centric organization and pushing new needs, developing new solutions. I can give you some example. People with prostate cancer have incontinence, and some people. I'm an athlete, so I measure everything when I train. I use Zwift and I use Strava. And the idea is I do patient support, and sometimes the man will tell me, well, I don't feel like it's getting better. I'm saying, well, do you measure what you're doing? Usually they say no. So how can you determine that you're not getting better, But the idea would be probably for Procure to provide an app saying, well, today went well, this is what happened, and you can measure that over time and say, well, obviously there's peaks and valleys, but over time I'm getting better. So by analyzing the problems of a prostate cancer man and all the issues you may come up with different types of solutions or services, package them services into a product, bundle some services and provide them as a product to the. So there's a better way when he goes back to work. You can support him. There's a way in his life, and if he's doing sports. So all that thing is really getting into the life of a patient, the better way to survive their prostate cancer.
So it's definitely not just about awareness, right? There is actual research involved. There is patient support. Maybe we take a step back for a second. What besides awareness, what other main categories is Procure involved with?
Well, there's three axes. It started with research, the biobank, like I said earlier, and then we're investing, in research project all the time. So then we have awareness, which is our campaigns, and then the last step is information and support. And AI is pushing organizations like ours to reinvent ourselves. Our website, we used to be the destination. It's not anymore the destination for patient. They'll type in symptoms in the Google search bar and they'll have an answer right there. So if your destination is a website that comes later down in the list, you won't be seen. You're not providing. It's all about, I say in French, pertinence. To be pertinent with your organization. So this is why we're trying to redefine our services because of AI. And I'm not judging AI in a bad way. It forces us to decide, well, we cannot only be a destination. We cannot only provide phone support to those patients. We got to be part of their journey to get better. So how do you do that? You provide services where they are. They're doing sports. They have a family life. They have a work life. So you have to be part of that life to support them. And there's different types of services you can provide that. I'm dreaming of an indicator. I'm a fan of dashboard. I'm dreaming of an indicator saying, well, can I measure if men are getting better by our services or getting better in a way? So you can survey those men and say, well, how do you feel going back to work? Is it better? Is your quality of life better? Is your your support system, your wife, your spouse, is it how do they feel? Are we getting better? And that's something you want to be able to measure as much as you measure inflation or you measure, you want to be able to measure that and quantify that and then adjust and provide services to get things better. So that's the whole idea that I would like to work with the universities is to draw this, a mapping of all the problems, building some new services and products, and then after that measure that and say, well, if we're not getting better, what do we need to change to make them better? So, not be just somebody that pushes information, but somebody that is a companion in your journey while you're sick.
It's great that you're able to marry the tech background that you have with that, because that's a very tech way of seeing things, a data-driven type of decisions, of evidence, of saying, okay, great. If we don't measure it, how do we know? There are ways, of course, of doing subjective analysis, but it's much better if you have actual numbers you can apply, even if it is actually subjective, or how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? That you can translate that to something that's quantifiable. So that's great. I'm happy to see that. I was unaware to the extent that you are actually providing this kind of information and support, and there's a lot of room for that as well.
Hey, Alex here. I want to take a brief moment and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode so far, please consider sharing it with someone who would also benefit from its insights. It's these kinds of referrals that really help the show grow. You can also show your support by making a small donation. I don't do corporate sponsorships or product placements, so I rely on your support to keep the show going. You can visit my website, agentsofnonprofit.com, and click Support Us in the top menu. Thank you kindly.
Let me jump back to the awareness for a second. Like, if you were to distill the message of awareness, is it really prostate cancer, it exists? And, after this age, you should probably get tested every so often. Like, what is the quintessential awareness message you're trying to share with organizations?
Well, there's the general message saying that, you should get tested at 50 years old. If you talk to Canadian urologists or even American urologists, they will say, you got to be checked at 50, Then you're asking a question, what is the, am I someone who is subject to have prostate cancer? That's the second question you should ask yourself. Well, if your father had prostate cancer, well, you're a good subject. Should. So there's always a message of, yes, you should get checked, but then these are all the conditions that increase your level of risk. The fact that you're, like my sons, they know that they need to get checked. I had prostate cancer at 48. They're 38 right now. My son just turned 38. He should get checked 10 years prior to what I've done. Then you've got the second thing that is not known, is that if your mother had breast cancer, you should get checked. My mother died at 53. She had breast cancer when she was 47. I didn't know that. I knew that afterwards. Well, I was a subject because of that. So that's the second level of... and then if you're from ethnic background, blacks have more risk of prostate cancer than others. So you need to know that too. So, you don't want to get people afraid, but it's a cancer that if you diagnose it early, 95 to 96% of survival rate if it's diagnosed early. And if not, because men are not taking care of their health as much as women, then some cancer could be aggressive and you could die at 50 years old. Like, we have a local singer here called Tremblay that died at 47. It's rare, but still, it happens. It's not a sickness for old people. It's a disease that could be aggressive in some instances, and you got to be worried about that. And typically, you don't have necessarily any symptoms. I didn't have any symptoms. I was doing triathlons and marathons and stuff like that. I was in good shape. And the fact that I was diagnosed is because I had an insurance on my life for the technology that I developed. So they said, well, we want a yearly checkup. Okay. So they paid for that. I had an insurance. And then my PSA went up. And my doctor she was really aware. And she asked me to do a biopsy, and I had prostate cancer. If I didn't have that requirement to go to see the doctor, well, I don't know if I would be there today. It would be probably aggressive. It was aggressive at 48, so I was lucky enough to have that. Obviously the insurance. I was let go in 2009, and I had prostate cancer in 2009. Kind of quite lucky that I maintained that yearly checkup. But so the message is really about being aware of your health in general, having a balanced life, doing some sport, eating properly. I guess this is valid for all cancer, or even for heart disease, But then there's part of genetics that is part of the deal that you have to know about.
I think you're absolutely right. The key element is being proactive. Unfortunately, in Quebec, and I imagine the rest of Canada, it's more reactive to medicine, right? When you have a problem, then you go and see a doctor versus... Like, I spend time, for example, in Spain, and in Spain, by being part of their private program, I get emails like, hey, you're turning this age, you should consider getting this done. And because of this, you should do that. So it's much more proactive. I mean, obviously, they're trying to make some money as well because it's in a private system. But the concept still is, know what you are most likely susceptible to die from. If it's heart disease, if it's cancer, if it's this and that. And then, just get checked on a regular basis and keep on getting checked to make sure that you're good. And the expectation is you're fine, you're healthy, if you're eating well, if you're taking care of yourself, there should be no problem. but it takes very little effort, and you can, to your point, when you catch it early enough, if it ever happens, you can probably recover from it highly and successfully. Versus if you just kind of put your head in the sand and say, "Forget it, I'm perfect, I'm awesome, everything's great," you may not notice these things. So it's just to your point, like being aware that there are certain things that, as a man and as a woman, but you need to make sure that you are doing to verify and confirm that you are indeed healthy, and it's not just a matter of sentiment. And men have this perception like, "Oh, I'm a man," and I've seen some of those, and I mean, you can go there, but you're not doing your health in the best interest. So no. I'm really happy to see that you are spreading that message, because I think it's an important one. It is a preventative one. It's an early one. You don't, to your point, you don't have to wait till you don't have to be in your 70s and 80s to get it. You can get it when you're young, 40s and 50s. So I guess this is my way of saying thank you for helping spread that awareness.
And you know what? Some people will say, well, if you get diagnosed, there's too much diagnostics, and there's false positive and stuff like that. I rather know. For my part, I rather know than not knowing. That's one. But it's not because you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer that you'll necessarily get an operation or a treatment. There's active surveillance that we're doing, has been done in Canada, some in the US, but is that, there's no way of operating on a patient if you don't, and research can prove that it won't get more aggressive. And that's something, if you can avoid that, it's really interesting. I know that I have prostate cancer, and I'm being actively surveillance. So there's an active surveillance on my case, but there's no treatment for now. There's no treatment. They're not doing anything in it, which is a way I find interesting. It's I would hope in the near future we would get better of knowing which one will be more aggressive and the ones that won't be. And that's obviously some kind of research we're trying to fund, is really decipher from those and determine which one will go crazy.
So the third step, which is the first step actually, is the research part. So how does Procure contribute toward the research?
The biobank was really innovative. I said it really rapidly, but just imagine 2,000 men, and why Quebec? In the US, this biobank could not exist, because typically a family is born in Florida, and people are traveling all across USA. This is why Thanksgiving, everybody's coming over. People in the US are spreading really rapidly. You'll have your sibling in different cities. In Quebec, we stay in our same city. You're born in Montreal, probably die in Montreal, something like that. So you really, pandemic has pushed a little bit people around the suburbs, but typically, and this was a great advantage because we were able to follow those men for 10 years. Some have died in those 2,000 men. So we have their prostate, typically their prostate, and then we have blood every year and urine every year. So we did a research with Terry Fox Foundation, which is to determine the genome of prostate cancer. So they've asked us, give us 100 men that have died that were around that age. So imagine you have the data, you have the specimen, and you can analyze the evolution over 10 years. Great, it's a great asset. We've spent over $10 million in that biobank. From my point of view, we're not doing enough project using that. I have my specimen in that biobank. I want them to be used. But now we're funding also research that is not using our biobank, that is using, like in December, we made a partnership with the Canadian Research Society where we're funding a $2 million project where we're going to be having 4 projects of $500,000. And for me, it's like, if there's a way we can find a better way to treat, a better way to prevent, a better way to diagnose which one are the lethal one, that would be great. And the biobank is a huge value. It's huge value. It's like it was pretty innovative for Procure to invest in something that is going to be useful for others. Being able by researcher, and we have all the demographics and social element like. Did your mother die of prostate? So we have all that data that it's not necessarily only a physical specimen, it's a biospecimen, it's all the data, what you're eating, what you're doing, everything. So over a 10-year period, imagine the data, the quality of that, it's amazing. So we did that, and that's something different than other fundraising organizations. Typically, you invest in research and that's it. We made a commitment to build that. So I was not there when they decided that. I find that's a great idea. And they've asked me to participate as a patient. That was easy to say yes.
In terms of impact, because you mentioned that word before, I mean, I can see how it would be relatively easy to measure the impact of the research. For the information and support for the patients, I can see, a number of patients increasing or length of engagement with you. How do you measure your impact for awareness?
The website, but with the AI, there's come out of impact. It's also brand awareness when you're looking at the link between the Movember campaign and Procure. It's really, it's Procure. So you want to be top of mind when you have prostate cancer. You want to be top of mind with the family. We're not targeting only men. We're targeting women also. Because a woman is the daughter of, the spouse of, the friend of a man. And we know, let's not be gender specific, but we know that women are much more inclined to set up the medical appointment for their spouse. They know about when you're going to see the doctor, which is in a kind of way to also target men. So the awareness is playing at all those at that level, and the way you measure it is through the website, through the engagement that we have through the website, but also to the donor base, but also to the phone lines. We have an increase on phone calls and everything.
And you mentioned AI earlier about how it's impacting your perception of how people visit your website. Are there any other examples how AI has just changed the way you do things? Like, do you use AI in your day-to-day type of activities, or is there any other influence that AI has at Procure?
Yeah, I think we're doing like everybody else, drafting comments, but also trying to innovate. What we do is we push all our website content into chat, and so the answers we get are much more specific. So we may, into 2026, look into having a chat box that are going to be on a website, answering some basic service, some basic question about prostate cancer. But then you have to have the traffic on your website, so that's some kind of an issue. We're trying to, obviously with the analysis of patients, we're trying to draft solution using AI, just by providing the data, massaging the content and giving us some feedback on that. So that's something that, my IT company was 20 years ago was an IT-driven, AI-driven company. We were doing, it was a technology to do some text summary and bring some knowledge about content in unstructured text. So my way of thinking is, it was early on using AI, and now today I find that these are tools that are helping organizations like ours be as big as a much bigger organization. We're able to multiply our impact by using AI, because we're having this intelligent body within your organization that is unstoppable, that is willing to work all the time, as much you feed them. So this for me is something really interesting for nonprofit organization, is that you're able to compete, you're able to put yourself ahead because you're using technology that is it's targeted or well targeted to the needs that you have.
The last question I love asking guests is if they had some kind of superpower, because there's a theme to this show, right, about superheroes. Yeah. If they had a superpower or a magic wand, if they could change something about the space. Now, for you, I'm pretty sure, awareness, if everyone had 100% awareness, or 100% of people had awareness of it and got tested, that's an easy answer. Is there any other thing that you wish people were more aware of, or a power you could change something in the world of health or prostate or anything else?
Well, you know what? I'm still, we're a society that is much more open than 20, 50, 100 years ago. But I still find there's a lot of taboo about this disease. And a lot of times men won't talk about that disease because of the taboo, because you become a lesser man, you're not as productive, you're not as performant, And this is something I've tried to demonstrate, even though I don't have any prostate anymore. I had prostate cancer. I did cross Canada on my bike, and serve as an inspiration to people to say, well, life doesn't stop after cancer. even prostate cancer, you can still be active. You don't need to cross Canada on your bike, but at least you can do some stuff that, walking, doing something, climbing a mountain, and be proud of you. Be proud of that you're able to do that. So I would I don't know if I'm going to be able to see that in my lifetime, but I would like that prostate cancer is not as taboo as it is right now, and people are speaking more freely. When I started working at Procure, women used to call us, talking about their spouse. And then there was a time and space where men were coming to us in a kiosk and saying, I have a friend that has prostate cancer. And now today, friend. And now today, men will say, well, they'll talk to me, but they're not as open as, they're sometimes referred to, you know what you mean, you know what I mean. You know what I mean is a phrase that is being used a lot in prostate cancer. You know what I mean. What does it mean? I'm not sure about you know what I mean, but they don't want to talk about incontinence. They don't want to talk about erectile dysfunction. It's kind of it's a side effect that does affect men, and not talking about it does not make you a lesser man.
I agree. I think just being vulnerable about your health, or not vulnerable, maybe open is the right word about your health, not putting your head in the sand. And just saying, these things happen. We have to deal with it. And as a man, you have to deal with it. I would say the reverse. By talking more about it, by being open to the idea of it, qualifies you more of a man. But there are manly qualities to that. It should not be something you're ashamed of. We don't talk enough, unfortunately, about mental and physical health in the men space. And so I kind of agree that would be one wonderful thing that would be lovely to see in our lifetimes. It's just the acceptance, understanding, and more loving and giving toward our own mental health and physical health.
Yeah, performance is not a driving force for man. You can perform at a different level. I find the more pertinent is much more important to me in my life today. I don't need to be the best. I need to be pertinent in my life. Do I bring value to others around me, not necessarily because I'm working, but because I'm helping. I had a man contacted me last month, saying, well, you've spoken to me 3 years ago and you had a lot of impact in my life. Going back to public company shareholders and everything, I never had this kind of impact. Shareholders are never happy. You got 10%, they want 20%. This is a reward. Being a nonprofit, being in a cancer organization, having this feedback to you is priceless. And I didn't remember what I told him. I said, we had a discussion, and he was making choice about the treatment as you recall. But for me, having that kind of feedback 3 years ago, that I had some kind of impact in his life, well. No, this is why you work in a nonprofit.
Awesome. This has been awesome. How can people get in touch or learn more about Procure and websites you can give, or other social media channel tags?
Well, Procure.ca is really the destination. Hopefully, we will be providing a lot more in a year to come. They can follow us on Instagram. We've got those amazing campaigns. We're really active right now, and there's a support line. The support line is a toll-free line, so you can contact all across Canada. Even we have phone calls in Europe. People are contacting us about prostate cancer, so you can use our line. Nurses are going to talk to you for the time it needs for you to exchange and talk about your problem.
And those numbers are available on the website, right?
On the website, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
This has been great. Thank you so much for sharing so much, and thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you for having me on your show.
All right, that's it for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again in the next Agents of Nonprofit.